Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to this Sandwich of Coherency. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So, again, recently as we keep sorting through the news and what's happening in the media, it's climate change back on the table. It's always climate change this and I'm sure everybody's heard the statements, 97% of scientists agree, blah 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 blah, which has been proven to be a false statement time and time again. You've got everybody calling themselves a climate expert, a climate activist, and they're trying to save the world with their bleeding hearts. But when you ask them the basic questions, they don't have an answer. They don't have an answer to any of the basic things you ask them. All they know is that we have to do it. Well, why do we have to do it? Because the man on the television told me scary things. And I have to tell you that you're not alone. 10 years before they told you this, they were saying it to the previous generation. And every 10 years before that, they are saying the same thing. And you've got AOC and, Greta Thunberg, and they're saying the world's going to end in 10 years. If we don't do this, the world's going to end in 10 years. They don't... Well, Thunberg's not old enough, and AOC is too ditzy to recollect it, but, there was the recycling scare with that barge that sailed around the United States, going from place to place, port to port. And they said, we're running out of space. We don't have anywhere to put this garbage, which was, again, an absolute lie. I forget his name, but the guy who wrote the paper that laid out the plan for the whole recycling movement, even he stated that the recycling movement was based on a lie. So again, everybody's asking for money for their Green New Deal, for their agenda, their climate agenda. All these policies and changes have to be made. All this stuff has to be done to fix the climate, yet they keep getting it wrong. They keep getting it wrong. How many times can they be so absolutely wrong before people realize that, hey, look, they don't know what they're talking about? Are humans having some effects on the planet? Yes, they are. Are they minuscule at best? Yes, I would say so. The world's not becoming uninhabitable. It's becoming uninhabitable for humans. That you could say that. You could say we're making it harder for ourselves to survive, but most of the plant life and most of the animal life that's here now will still be here. The planet will still be here. We know that shit has happened and shit has blown up throughout the millions of years. Hence why we don't have dinosaurs and other species of things on this planet anymore, which means that it will all happen all over again. We're just a little minuscule spot in the process. And so this idea that we're going to make the Earth uninhabitable is just absolute nonsense. You have a greater chance of an asteroid hitting the Earth than causing that. You have a greater chance of a volcano exploding and causing that, than you do of humans, even at the rate that we're going. Actually destroying the Earth. Even if we launched all the nuclear weapons on the planet at once, the planet would still be here. Over time, things would start over. We wouldn't be here. But I guess that's the point. So let's just go ahead and jump into this bit right here from March 28th that was sent to me. This is really good. But it points out the basics, like of what I'm saying is that these are the people that are sitting here talking about it and making all the decisions that they don't know what they're trying to make decisions on.
Panelists. Let me just go right down the line real fast. What percent of our atmosphere is CO2? Take your best guess. You don't have to be accurate. all down the line.
Repeat that question?
What percent of our atmosphere is CO2, carbon dioxide? Wild guess, it's okay.
I'll bite 5%.
5?
I'll just follow you then.
We'll go 7. That's my favorite number.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2, so that's why we're all working on energy transition.
All right. So what number do you think it is?
5.
5? How about you? I didn't hear you, Mr. Dreyer.
7.
7. Did you have one, Mr. Boyd?
So we got a 5, 7,
This Price is Right.
8. I'm gonna
Okay.
get the high end.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to put you on ice. I ask a lot of people that because all we hear is climate change, CO2, CO2. I heard a couple of you on the panel saying you're looking to change your vehicles to electric, even though we don't have the electric grid. And me as a farmer, I wouldn't be real happy about running out and replacing $300,000, $500,000, $1 million pieces of equipment because someone wants it to be electric. The answer is 0.04%.
I'm gonna pause it right there. 0.04%. And as the kind lady said, transportation accounts for 49%. So you're saying that the transportation sector accounts for half of the 0.04%? I mean, again, they should know these numbers. These are the things that they are supposed to know. And, this actually, the fact you mentioned he's a farmer, this is a big, to me, is a big thing. A lot of people who say these things, and they want to shut everything down, they want to move to this and that, and never ask, they can never answer that basic question, how are we going to feed everybody? But then they say the dumb shit like, well, there's too many people. Well, how do you suggest we deal with that? Should we have every woman in the world be forced to have birth control installed in her right before she becomes birthing age? And that way, when she wants to give birth, she can pass some kind of criteria to prove that she is a worthy candidate for having children. Should we do something similar to all males? I mean, honestly, how do you suggest we go about that? Should we basically do that to all citizens and let the government decide who is allowed to and who is not, who shouldn't have children? Like, how do you go about that? And how do you farm? And like I said, in the beginning, like I said, they'll say dumb shit like that, but that would be my response to that. But the reality is, how do you feed people? For what we have in this world, in order for them to achieve the idea that they want, you really would actually have to begin destruction. You would have to start tearing down the infrastructure of this comfortable world that you live in. I think that's one thing that has not been addressed, that people keep overlooking, is that you cannot have this modernism if you're trying to go backwards. And people will say, well, we're trying to do solar and this and that. We have nuclear, but you've been made to be afraid of it, and everybody's extra afraid of nuclear power. We don't know how to harness it. We don't know how to harness nuclear power. You believe that? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But it really is one of the larger parts about it that I think gets lost on people, is that how much of the atmosphere is CO2. But let's continue.
Not 1%, not a half of a percent. It's 0.04%, and it's gone up from 0.03 over the last couple decades. This is what we're being all contorted into doing, is this tiny change in CO2. If we get below 0.02, plant life starts dying off. So Let me ask Mr. Boyd, what are a lot of your vehicles Tier 4 already, or the vehicles that you know about in the industry?
Yes,
All right, so that's the cleanest burning diesel equipment you can get, right?
yes, sir.
All right, how about Mr. Dreyer? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay, so why would anybody be anxious to go out and change out all those vehicles that you've been upgrading? In my home state of California, CARB has eliminated lots of equipment. Trucks, you know, we're down at least 70,000 truckers, and all because they don't make a mandate for a 2011 and newer vehicle. And so it's going to be harder to get things from the ports, all this, all that. So anyway, I just wanted to underline that as we all get all giddy about trying to make everything electric, especially in my home state when they're shutting down the power grid and taking out hydroelectric dams. And they barely kept in place the nuclear power plant for an additional 5 years, which is 9% of our grid. I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know how you guys are going to do construction out in remote areas where there isn't power lines yet nearby or what have you in order to charge this stuff. Maybe you'll bring generators. So anyway, thank you for letting me rant on that a little bit. Mr. Boyd, what are some of the challenges of trying to get permits to get stone, sand, and gravel available, especially like in places like California where just a few years ago, and I don't know what's current now, but in order to get these products into the Bay Area, they gave up getting it locally. They barged it in from British Columbia and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we talked about a while ago on Buy America. Using your district as a great example, if these exclusions are not made on the construction materials end, I don't know how your district's going to get any projects done, just due to the permitting issues that you currently have.
You know, I think it's bigger than just his district. I think this is something that's going to be, it's a nationwide problem. And that's the whole idea that we don't want to cause any damage, so we have to, so we're importing everything, causing more pollution, setting off more CO2 than we would if we'd have just done it here. I'll be honest with you, the reality is that the United States doesn't really need to be importing much of anything. For the most part, the United States has the resources and the ability to provide and produce for the civilians of this nation. There are some small things that we might need, but for the most part, I'd say it would be easier to manage. But the reality is that the United States does not need to be importing at all. And if you shut down everything in the United States, every power plant, every vehicle, every thing in the United States that produces carbon dioxide, you would have zero effect. Zero effect. That's how minuscule it is. It is basically nil. You know, and again, before I close this out, you know, everybody keeps saying that, you know, let's go electric. We're gonna do this. We have to do this. And look, okay, you know, I said maybe you're right. Let's say let's do that. How are we going to do that? How are you going to do this? Well, we're working on developing, you know, some point in the future, somebody's going to have, you know, if we put more money into, well, maybe if we force the businesses, if we do this, and decades on, we're decades and decades and decades on, okay? For what you want to do right now, you should already have the ability to put it into place. This is something that should have been already in the process of being done. This whole idea of eventually we'll figure it out, but we need to do this. No, we're not going to stab ourselves in the foot right now until you figure out how to heal the wound. That makes no sense. Why don't you figure out how to fix the shit? And then we can do that part. We can begin shutting things down, moving over to a more completely electrical grid without using combustion fuels. When you have something in place to use. Until then, you know, shh, silence. Oh boy, but let's see what they come up with next. I'm pretty sure that you're going to hear somebody saying that the world's going to end in 2 years. I just feel Al Gore is going to come out and say that, or the little tater tot Greta Thunberg is going to come out and say some more shit that she has no idea what she's talking about. But we'll see what happens. I thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.